TG Geeks, episode 313, February 15th, 2021. One idea created a movie and an album. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery. Sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely Overcast. What the heck is going on here, Phoenix, Arizona?
Yeah, it's winter again.
It's winter again.
Or it's trying to make up its mind.
Yeah, well, it's not cold, though.
No.
It's just overcast.
Yeah. And I'm Ben Raggington, coming to you from the exceptional TG Squared Studios here in Phoenix, Arizona. You see what I just did there?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
You'll figure it out, people.
Let's get on with it.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the Two Gay Geeks are discussing this.
Well, in this episode, we have a return guest, Scott J. Ramsey. We talked to him a number of months ago about his film X. And this time that was going through the film festival process.
Right.
And now it has been released, and they've found a distributor, and it's out on video or digital and DVD. And he has an album. Mm-hmm. His band has an album that's to be released actually tomorrow. So we're going to talk to him about both of those things. We'll have a regular birthday shout-outs, our podcast of the week, everybody's favorite feedback. I assume you have feedback this week?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting this week.
Aha. And our regular shout-outs in the second segment, if we have time, we'll talk about a couple of things. Weekly recap and a regular shout-out. So let's go see what Scott has to say. And we welcome back to our show Scott J. Ramsey. He's a filmmaker, and he's also got several projects going on. His recent film X hit the film festival circuit and has been released as of this week, or as of last week, and he's got a new album coming out. So welcome to this show, Scott.
Should I start calling you Phil Collins instead?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm very excited to talk to you guys again.
Yeah. So tell us, for those that have not listened to the previous interview with you. Go back and give us the kind of elevator speech of your life, where you came from, how you got into filmmaking, blah, 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 as if you were going to the top of the Empire State Building. So that elevator.
Yeah, the slow elevator pitch.
Not the we're going 2 floors elevator pitch, but the rest of it.
For sure. So I'm Scott, and I'm from the Bay Area in California. And I've kind of been making movies and making art and making music my whole life. I always say that before I could pick up a pen and write, I would dictate to my grandma, and she would write down stories for me. I've always been kind of a storyteller, and art is kind of my whole life, as pretentious as that sounds. I just spend most of my time filmmaking and making music and stuff. And the film X is my first feature film, which I wrote with my creative partner, Hannah Katherine Jost. And we went to school together at San Francisco State, where I was a cinema major, and where I also met our producing partner, Kevin De Nicolo, who is the other half of my music act that made the album you guys mentioned. And so the three of us met at SF State, and we decided that we didn't want to wait for permission to make our first feature film after we graduated. So we pitched to Kevin's parents to get a investment of $30,000 to make a feature film.
Wow.
Because we knew that they had invested in some past projects, and we were so incredibly grateful that they believed in us and they believed in our vision. So we made a feature film as complete rookies with no experience, other than like making our class projects and,
Right.
Stuff I'd shot in my backyard and all that.
Yeah.
So we made our feature film, and it's kind of a queer erotic thriller. And the movie is pretty much about a young woman who hosts masked sex parties at her beachside estate. And little do the guests know that there's a hidden camera in the bathroom. So it's kind of about voyeurism, and it's a thriller, but it's also really funny. And about the album that you guys mentioned, that album came about when we started making music for the movie. And basically, while we were making one of the songs, Hannah suggested that I sing one of the songs because she knew that I was a singer. And we kind of wanted it to have like an 80s goth pop new wave vibe, kind of in the vein of like Susie and the Banshees or The Cure or Depeche Mode. And so we started making that song, and it was so fun that we made another song for the end credits, and then we kind of accidentally made a whole album. And that's our album At the Devil's Ball that Kevin and I made. And it's actually separate from the soundtrack for the movie. So there's the soundtrack, which was composed by Kevin and a really amazing, genius, talented composer named Leanne Doe, who is our good friend. And then this album, At the Devil's Ball, is by Kevin and I, with me as vocalist, him as instrumentalist. And it's its own body of work that kind of exists separate from the movie. So we're really excited about it because it's kind of like storytelling on multiple levels. We also made music videos to a few songs from the album, too. So it's got the movie, the music videos. So that's kind of a nice summary of me and the project. And
and the name of the band is the Major Arcana, correct?
Yeah.
And we ran a
press release.
The press release last Saturday of this recording, or this hearing, shall we say, which is Monday. So if you want to check that out and where it's at and a couple of the videos that are associated with that, check out that article at tggeeks.com. And so I thought didn't listen to it. I was just trying to put that together and get ready for this interview. So tell us, you said that it's more of an 80s-esque sound, did you say?
Yeah, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Very artistically, to want to go in that kind of direction. I mean, I understand sort of maybe the goth kind of approach, but to also introduce this 80s vibe to this film, I mean, does that suggest the era that the story takes place in?
Oh, not at all. So it's actually just kind of musically what I'm geared towards, because my parents came of age in the 80s, so I grew up listening to that. I was born in 92, but they used to play 80s music when I was growing up.
I'm not judging.
Like
I am not judging, because I happen to love a lot of 80s music.
We're old enough to remember that. Yes.
Well, Keith and I are children of the 60s. So I believe me, I was listening to a lot of 70s and 80s music, and I fell in love with a lot of 80s tunes, which is why I'm really intrigued to finally sit down and listen to this soundtrack. So I just thought it was an interesting artistic choice. And again, I'm not judging. Okay. I'm more very intrigued and interested in your approach on this.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I mean, that was kind of, I mean, it started because I'm geared towards that, but basically with our team and with me, I really don't ever create from a place of like being directly inspired by something. Usually it starts with the story or with the music or whatever, and then it ends up taking whatever form it's going to take. And I just think I'm kind of geared towards an 80s sound naturally. But the first song that we made was called Knave, and it was the album, the soundtrack of the movie, not this album, but the soundtrack is a deck of cards. So each track is like a different card in a deck. Like there's ace and 2 and 3 and 4, and then knave, queen, king. So we started with knave, and when we were making that song, it's for a montage in the movie that we wanted to have kind of a spooky but also seductive vibe, because it's about that main character who hosts those sex parties that I mentioned in the story. She's like hunting down and seducing potential guests for these masked events and kind of making them fall in love with her. So we wanted it to have kind of this seductive but also this like vampiric spooky vibe. So Kevin made an instrumental that has a really new wave 80s vibe to it that I really, really loved. And basically I wrote a song on top of this instrumental that is in a gay underground language called Polari that was basically in the 19th century in Britain. Polari was how gay men would find out if someone else was gay, and to make sure that like they could hit on them and not get beat up or whatever.
Right.
And so I was so fascinated with that. So I wrote this song in Polari, and the song is called Knave, and it has that Susie and the Banshees, The Cure-esque vibe. So then that kind of just became the template for the rest of the album. And again, it really wasn't intended to be its own album at first. It was just, we wanted the music for the movie to be its own thing and to be really vibrant and listenable, obviously, on its own. But we kind of accidentally built the rest of the songs from there. We made a song for the end credits, and then we really wanted to make several music videos. So we started writing songs kind of with that in mind, that we were going to make these music videos that would be an extension of the film. And it kind of just snowballed from there. But that song, I think, was like the sonic, I guess, mood board for the rest of the album. And it just happened to have that new wave vibe. And it really works well in the movie, but it also works well on its own, too. And we actually shot a music video to that song that has a YouTuber, Austin Wallace, in it, that basically is kind of a Alice in Wonderland themed video with like a pink narcissus vibe, too. So it's got like homoerotic imagery and Alice in Wonderland imagery, and there's a Lee Bowery inspired look in it. So that's kind of fun.
So the movie was just this gigantic creative process.
All these things are spinning off of it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. And we made 3 music videos in total, and we took all 3 of them to film festivals. We took one to Bowery Film Festival in New York, and we went to this cool little festival in Washington called Gorst that plays like really creepy oddities and just a lot of fun different stuff. And so we kind of had a festival run for just the videos too. And our investors really wanted to help us make those also, because they believed in the idea of the movie existing as storytelling on multiple levels. So we were really grateful for that. And it was kind of just a fun, creative exercise and a way also for us to continue filmmaking while we were in post-production on the movie. Because, films are really, really expensive. We can't just make a movie whenever we want to, as much as I would love to. So instead, these music videos were kind of a way to exercise our creative muscles and expand the visual world of the movie without actually, making another full-length feature.
Well, that is totally far out, and I love the idea that you did this one song in Polari, and I'm wondering if maybe you're actually you'll bring about a resurgence. There'll be a renaissance, and in Polari, which I think would be totally far out.
Kind of our thing,
Yeah, no kidding. So let's go back to the film, because I'm really intrigued with this.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with creative process, and so where at some point, where did this genesis of an idea of doing X, and its plot and its themes, where did that start germinating?
So I don't really know how the first idea came to me, but when I went back and I analyzed myself after, I kind of realized that when you grow up queer, you kind of have this innate sense of otherness, obviously, and this innate sense that you don't belong, but there's also this feeling that you're a pervert. So I kind of think that is where the idea to have a movie where the main character is a pervert came from, because it's really natural to be able to put yourself in her shoes, in the sense that when you're in middle school and you feel like looking at someone of the same gender makes you perverted,
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a stretch because she's an actual sexual predator and she's doing something terrible, and obviously there's nothing comparable between being queer and that, but the sense of otherness and the sense of shame that completely cloaks your sexuality and your identity when you grow up queer. I think, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know how the subconscious works, but I think that might be kind of what influenced the original idea. But when I first brought it to my writing partner, Hannah, the main character was male. And I pitched her the story, and then I told her at the end. And then I also kind of have this idea that maybe we could write it with the main character as a woman. And Hannah said, "Oh, let's do that. That's so much more interesting because, this story with a male sexual predator has been done thousands of times.
Right.
So many Hitchcock movies. And
we've all experienced
so
it.
It's a completely... yeah, exactly. So it puts an interesting feminist spin on it to have a female gaze instead of a male gaze. And in that vein, most of the department heads of the movie, other than myself, were women. The cinematographer, Chantel, is a queer. Hannah, who wrote the movie with me, is queer. So, it was very important to us that we make a movie that was coming from the perspective of a queer feminine gaze instead of the typical cisgender straight male gaze.
I'm fascinated how you talked about where you think some of this may have come from, especially in retrospect. I mean, it's almost something kind of Freudian about all of that, and it's like, pull Sigmund Freud about what seems to be the problem. I mean, I think that's a really interesting idea, but I kind of think that maybe there is something kind of universal to this, because a lot of the best independent films that I've seen come across the way, there seems to be some sort of, I guess, a psychological truth to it that somebody is dealing with, some kind of an issue, and maybe there's some kind of cathartic process in actually putting it to celluloid or whatever the medium is.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I think that's absolutely amazing. What was the response? I mean, when you took it, I assume you took it to film festivals. What was the general response to your film?
Well, the response has been mostly positive. It's a movie that's not for everyone, which we completely recognize. It's got a midnight movie vibe. It's very queer. It's very the subject matter obviously is not for everyone, but we kind of knew that going in, so we submitted to festivals that were specifically geared towards this kind of thing, and all of our friends and stuff who worked on the movie tend to like this kind of thing. So it has been really well received, I think, in part because of that. But I mean, not everyone we've talked to has loved it. It's definitely got kind of a rookie vibe. It feels like a movie that was made by first-time filmmakers, I think, to a degree, which I think kind of adds to its charm, because it's got like a, rough around the edges kind of. Like, we had to re-record all of the audio in post-production because of the sound of the ocean and because the camera we were filming was noisy, and also the muffling effect of masks. So it's kind of got like a rough around the edges vibe to it. But people have responded to it really well. People seem to appreciate what we're trying to do with it and the circumstances and all that. So I'm really happy with how it's been received.
Yeah, well, there's something to be said about not trying to make a movie that is geared for everybody. You need to make the movie that you want to make, and as I say to all creative people, there are two ways to do it. You can make it your way or make it the wrong way. And it definitely sounds like you made it your way, which is the most genuine and allows you to be your most authentic creative self, if that makes any sort of sense. And it sounds like you were able to achieve that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
And so did you film this in the Bay Area, or was that elsewhere?
Yeah, we shot several scenes in the Bay Area. Most of the film was shot at Susan, who was one of our financier and is a really lovely lady and a generous host. She has a gorgeous beachside house in Big Sur. And when Hannah and I were writing the script together, we kind of had an idea that we might be able to shoot there. So we kind of wrote the script with the layout of that house in mind. And when we shot there, it was kind of like summer camp for the whole cast and crew. We shot in the spring, not summer, but except for me and the other producers who were always huddled in a corner trying to figure out how to put out fires and do all the crises. It was kind of like summer camp. You know, people would sleep in really late because we shot mostly at night because this house has windows that make the entire inside of the house pretty much, other than the bedrooms, visible from outside, which is kind of a cool symbolic thing too. But because of that, you know, you can see outside, so there was no way to fake day for night. So we had to shoot at night,
right?
Because these events in the story take place at night. So people would sleep late and kind of like go for morning runs and cook for themselves in this house, and then at night we would all shoot from, you know, call time would be like 6 p.m., 7 p.m., that we shoot till 5 in the morning and then do it all over again.
Oh my gosh.
But it was on the Big Sur coast, which is just comically gorgeous. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the last episode, but it's kind of ridiculous and kind of speaks to the story that we never really go outside to see the gorgeous landscape in the movie, which I think is kind of interesting because it kind of speaks to the fact that the main character, Christian, is completely unappreciative of her situation. You know, she's a wealthy person, and her privilege is kind of a plot point.
Right.
And I just think it's kind of interesting that, you know, we see her like traversing around this gorgeous house and with this gorgeous cliffs and the famous Big Sur Bridge behind her and the ocean, and you never really get a nice like Hollywood landscape shot of it ever. It's just kind of there in the background, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
You know, and speaking to the fact that you had to like loop all the dialogue in post, I having been born in the Bay Area and live much of, you know, the first 30 years of my life along the Pacific Coast, I can attest to the fact that the Pacific Ocean is by nature very loud.
Oh, for sure.
It's a very loud place.
Extremely loud.
And especially at Big Sur.
The ocean was loud.
It's very rocky there.
No, yes. It was very loud, and we also had a very loud camera because we were shooting on the red, and most of the characters are wearing masks, which especially one of the main characters, Stella, is wearing a mask almost the entire movie. So when we were shooting it, we knew, I mean, we'd gone to film school, and in film school they warn you, you know, sound is the most important thing. Really prepare for your sound as much as you prepare for the camera stuff. And we had that in our head, but then when you get to the reality of there's all this noise everywhere and we have to go, we realized kind of when it was too late, we're going to have to re-record everything, which was kind of a shock. And then so we went into the studio, and we found this studio in San Francisco called Different Fur, and we made friends with two of the engineers there, Leanne Doe and Matthew Pereira. And while we were re-recording some of the ADR, they asked us, do you guys have a post-sound team yet? And we said, well, we might work with one of our teachers from school. We're not sure. And they said, okay, well, how would you feel about us doing the post-sound? We're kind of starting our own post-sound company. And we were like, cool. Oh, yeah, for sure, because we loved working with them. So then Leanne ended up being one of the composers of the score, along with Kevin. And Matt did the sound design, and we did all of the Foley. We did everything at Different Fur and all the ADR. And all the actors came back. We were so glad and grateful that all the actors came back and did all of their ADR and stuff.
That's great.
We ended up building pretty much the entire soundscape of the movie from scratch,
okay,
which would not have happened if it weren't for the immeasurable talent of Leanne and Matt.
I'm going to amend my earlier statement when I jokingly called you Phil Collins. I'm going to call you J.J. Abrams instead, because you're starting off. I mean, really from ground zero, because this is exactly what J.J. did.
Yeah.
I mean, he started from ground zero.
Well,
he started getting in all of his friends who were in the biz, and, you know, people that were starting in any kind of post-production work, and they've kind of grown up together to where he's now built this entire team. that he calls Robot. So I think it's amazing that you're doing this, and I think it's very exciting to see where this is all going to go for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Our team, Chantel, who I mentioned, and Leanne, and Hannah, who I wrote the movie with, and Kevin, who, my bandmate and one of the producers, and our whole team is really something special. And we really, it's so cheesy and it's so cliched, but we really did become a family while we were making the movie. And we also, what's interesting is because of those music videos that I mentioned, we actually met several collaborators on those that did not work on the movie, who now, have kind of joined the core important team because of how amazing they were while we were making the music videos. So I'm really excited to work on something else, especially now that we have experience and we kind of know the pitfalls of, film festivals and distribution and post-production and all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I'm excited to see where we're able to go in the future,
Yeah, and we're running up against the red line, but before I go, I want to re-amend my statement and say, okay, no, you're not J.J. Abrams, you're John Carpenter. Because of the music. Because John Carpenter does his own music for his films. So you're John Carpenter, dude, and that's awesome because John Carpenter is one of the most amazing, and he came from an independent background.
He's John Abrams.
Oh, he's John Abrams. J.J. Carpenter.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, dear God.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, Leanne and Kevin made the music for X, and they are really, really talented, but I did make some of the songs on the album. I co-wrote and sang on all the songs on At the Devil's Ball, the Major Arcana's album. So I can take credit for that, but I cannot take credit for the compositions of the score, which are totally Leanne and Kevin. And I definitely sat with them and worked with them on it and was very, very hands-on because I'm a control freak and I really knew what I wanted, but they were... It was all their talent and stuff that made the score. So, Leanne and Kevin are amazing. And so,
well, you're still John Carpenter, and I'm going to leave it at that. So, so let's start with the movie. If people want to see the film X, where can they find it?
They can find X on iTunes, Vudu, Google Play, Amazon Prime, and YouTube, and basically any transactional platform. And there is a link in the bio of our Instagram to find all of those things. And our Instagram is at EverybodyLovesX, and they can also find it on our website, which is everybodylovesx.com. But it's on all platforms that are transactional, and it's actually also on DVD, which I know is a little antiquated, but you can order a DVD too.
And what about your album? With the Major Arcana, where can people find that?
So that can also be found in the bio of the Instagram, Everybody Loves X, and it also can be found on the Major Arcana's Instagram, which is _Major Arcana Music. And it's also on the website, the X website. And that will be available on all streaming platforms on the 16th of February.
Which is tomorrow.
And,
so
right.
Spotify, iTunes, all that, yeah.
And if people want to follow you, because I'm assuming that you're not just stopping here. You've got other creative adventures that you want to explore. Where can people follow you and learn more about what you're doing?
They can follow me at Scott J. Ramsey, Instagram.com/Scott J. Ramsey, or at Scott J. Ramsey, rather, and they can also go to my website, ScottJRamsey.com. Oh, and I should mention for all of these things, for me, for X and the Major Arcana, we have a YouTube, which is X, Everybody Loves X, and we have all of the music videos I mentioned, trailers for the movie, and other stuff on there. And we are actually releasing a behind-the-scenes web series called Blood, Sweat, and Rose Petals, which chronicles the making of the movie.
Oh, cool.
That will be on our YouTube channel and our Instagram, actually, too. So
Coolness.
Everybody Loves X is the movie's Instagram, and Scott J. Ramsey is mine.
Excellent.
Cool. Well, this has been really great. Thanks for being on the show again, Scott.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
The force is strong with the Two Gay Geeks webcast.
Well, that was a fascinating
It was a
interview.
wonderful
wonderful
conversation with
Just a little
Scott.
chat with him, and all the interesting things that he's doing, as well as all the other people that he's picked up along the way, and created his own production company to do everything.
He really is like a blend between J.J. Abrams and John Carpenter, I think.
Well, here's a few selected birthdays for February 15th, 2021 through February 21st. 21st, yes. That's what I wrote down. 2021. February 15th, Matt Groening. Writer, illustrator, Simpsons, Futurama. He created a comic called Life in Hell.
Oh, gosh, I remember that.
And that spawned actually a stint on the Tracy Ullman Show, doing some animation, which actually was The Simpsons originally. And Bart is partially based on Dennis the Menace and himself as a child.
Creepy.
Yeah. Harvey Korman, actor, Blazing Saddles, Carol Burnett Show. He had his own show, but that didn't, I don't know why it didn't take off, but he was great on Carol Burnett Show. And
he was fantastic, especially when you paired him opposite Tim Conway.
Oh, yes. And see who could make the other one laugh.
Oh, that's a given.
He had actually, in 2008, he had an operation for a non-cancerous brain tumor.
Oh, wow.
And was released from the hospital, and the very next day had an aneurysm that actually, he lasted 4 months after that.
Oh, my goodness.
Died at the age of 81. Lillian Disney, the wife of Walt Disney, was one of the ink and paint ladies at the Disney Brothers studio way back in the day, and she died on December 16th in 1997, and actually so many different Disneys died around that date. Walt died, a couple of days before that, and Roy died, Roy O. Disney, and Roy, his dad. They all died in about a week's time.
That's weird.
Really weird time.
You need to share a story about when we were at Silverado Winery.
I have that written down.
Oh, very good.
Yes, we did a tour of Silverado Winery, which was Diane and
Ron Miller
and Ron Miller's winery up in the Napa Valley, and it was a fascinating tour.
Oh,
I was like,
amazing.
Wow. Diane was not there, but her granddaughter, or Lillian's granddaughter, or Diane's daughter was there, and we were in the barrel room.
Barrel room, yep.
And we were just kind of hanging at
We were
at
hanging
the
back.
To be able to take it all in and hear what was going on.
We were doing photos also, I think.
And this very tall woman slid up beside me and said, "Do you realize the significance of that window up there?" And
there's a beautiful stained glass window over the main entrance or exit of the barn.
Yep, and it was a stained glass of a lily. And I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do."
Of course you do.
for your grandmother, Lillian Disney. And actually, the lily was her favorite flower too.
Yeah, so that was a really great moment.
Yeah, it was. It was very, very touching, and something I will always remember.
Oh yeah.
And then we have Michelle King, a Facebook friend of ours. February 16th, Mahershala Ali, actor, was in Luke Cage, House of Cards, Green Book, which he won an Oscar for. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, he was the voice of Uncle Aaron. And many, many other things. Interesting thing about him, he has always cut his hair since he was 12.
Really?
Cut his own hair. Yep. Just one of those fascinating little, weird things. Benicio del Toro.
Oh, I got a good story on this.
Guardians of the Galaxy. He was in Infinity War, Sicario, several other projects that are in post-production, and many other projects.
I gotta share this. There was some news that was released on Twitter not long ago about how James Gunn wanted to do a holiday-themed Guardians of the Galaxy movie of some sort, and I made some crack about, well, as long, maybe they need to go to Groot's homeworld and do something about Life Day. And Benicio del Toro liked my comment.
Oh, that's cool. He turned down the role of Diego Rivera in Frida.
Really?
Yeah. because he didn't want to gain that much weight.
Oh.
And he's the third Puerto Rican actor to receive an Oscar. First was, the other two were Rita Moreno and Jose Ferrer, and was actually a background character in Madonna's La Isla Bonita.
No kidding.
Yeah, which I love that song. But
Oh, I do too.
anyway. Then we have Giorgio Benedetto, a Facebook friend of ours, Amanda Lang, or Amanda in
from
Tennessee,
Tennessee.
and then we have Byron A. Martin and Jim Lamb, a former classmate of mine. You know, it was in his, had a Mustang, and it was in his car that I first heard Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, really?
On 8-track tape.
Oh, please tell me,
And
guys.
it
Please tell me you headbanged.
Well,
after the opera section.
It was great, but the weird thing was that, as I recall, it was across 2 different tracks, right in the middle of the damn
Oh,
thing.
well, that's the beauty of 8-track, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
'cause I've
the
had a-
beauty of 8-track.
Yeah,
Yes.
fair. I've had so many 8-tracks where they split the song right in the middle. I'm like, how
really?
bloody dare you?
And let's see. Whoops. Where am I?
We're on February 17th now.
I'm February 17th. Now I got lost. Alejandro Jodorowsky, director,
my.
writer, eccentric.
Auteur.
Yes.
I mean, the man is just far out.
So many different surreal films. El Topo, The Holy Mountain. Was in the process of writing an adaptation of Dune for how many years?
That took a long
3 or 4
time.
or 5 years.
I
It was
kinda-
going to be 25 hours long.
And I think it got all hung up in rights and financing and this and that. And there was constant battles with the studio, so it never got launched.
Yeah.
Which is a pity because, holy moly, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It would have been interesting. And his first pick for Bernie Halleck.
Gurney?
For Gurney Halleck. Bernie Halleck.
I'm picturing Love Boat all of a sudden.
Gurney Halleck was Hervé Villechaize.
Whoa!
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I'm beginning to think that, had that movie been made, the only way you could really enjoy it is if you dropped acid.
Well, as a matter of fact, he said, film is to me as LSD is to Americans, or something to that effect.
Oh, I believe it.
Yep.
Yeah, because his movies really are a psychedelic trip.
Yeah. And then we have Hal Holbrook.
Oh, my
actor.
God, he just left us.
He just died at the age of 95. He would have been 96. Too many roles to name. Wow, All the President's Men and West Wing. He was Assistant Secretary of State who certainly could spin a yarn. He was one of those that
he could outdo
you get him,
President
get him
Bartlett.
started, and he just on and on and on.
I don't think, watching West Wing, I don't think President Bartlett, played by Martin Sheen, liked anybody who could out-yarn him.
Exactly. And then he did a one-man show of Mark Twain.
Oh, yes, he was very famous for that.
And he actually started doing that at the age of 28.
28?
Yeah.
Holy
way
moly.
back, I guess I glanced at the trivia and says that Eisenhower was impressed with his.
I thought that was something he did later in life.
No, it was, he probably continued on,
Well,
but
I guess.
he
And needed less
started
and
it.
less makeup.
Exactly. And then we have a filmmaker friend of ours, Jackson Stewart,
Amazing.
and Alan Perriello, who is with Minnesota Opera. Yep. And then February 18th, John Hughes, writer, director, Ferris Bueller, Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Home Alone, Vacation, Christmas Vacation.
He
Oh, my
was
God.
like the 80s family film man.
Yep. And Cars were very important in his films. And there was always a character that was always mouthing a line of another character as another character says it. In
Oh,
most of his
really?
lines. Yeah.
Okay, I've seen a lot of his films, but the only one that I keep going back to is Ferris Bueller because it's my favorite.
Yeah. And then we have Milos Forman, director, Amadeus, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He was born in the Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia. Yes. And interesting, and a horrible thing, his parents both died in World War II. His father died in Buchenwald, and his mother died in Auschwitz. But they were not Jewish.
How did they end up there?
For participating in the resistance movement. And he was spirited away. He didn't go to one of the camps. So it was fascinating. And then actually went back to Prague to do
Amadeus. Yeah.
Interesting. And then we have Facebook friend Michael Ray. February 19th, Nicholas Copernicus. Renaissance-era mathematician, astronomer who devised a model of the quote-unquote universe with the sun at the center rather than the earth at the center of the universe. His model is still effective in understanding the motion of planets, in our solar system. He published his On the Revolutions of Celestial Spheres just before his death, which helped trigger the scientific revolution. Luigi Boccherini, a composer and cellist of the classical era. He started off in Italy, obviously, and moved to Spain, where he did most of his composing away from the major art centers of Europe, and wrote a number of guitar quintets. So fascinating. And then we have good friend of ours, Audra Hall.
Wow. I mean, the goodness, the connection between Audra and her family to you and I, independently of each other.
Exactly.
Because I met Audra before I met you.
And I met her mother before I met you.
So how weird is that?
Yeah, it's fascinating. February 20th, Hubert de Givenchy, fashion designer from a very artistic family. One of his grandfathers wrote or designed sets for the Paris Opera and just all kinds of things. Designer of the little black dress that Audrey Hepburn wore in Breakfast
at Tiffany's. I imagine so.
Yeah, they met in 1953, and she became a proponent of many of his designs, and also became the spokesperson or the face of his first perfume that he launched. It was the last time anything had been done for free. After that, she did that as a favor to him. And she also designed he designed a number of things for Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy, or Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, whichever name you want to use. And among other notables, Maria Callas and Renata Tebaldi. And his longtime partner was designer Philippe Venet, and he died at his chateau near Paris in 2018 at the age of 91. He did some incredible designs. I mean, it's just all over the place. Men's clothing, women's clothing, perfumes. They had a Cadillac and a Lincoln that was...
Going back to his fashion design, the only one that I really know of is Breakfast at Tiffany's, what Audrey Hepburn wore. She was wearing in that. And what I loved about it, what I would say about this, is that he was able to come up with something that was simple.
Yep.
Because it was not over the top in terms of its design. It was very simple, and yet it just screamed elegance.
Exactly, and that was put him over the top, is that little black dress that was so simple yet fashionable.
I mean, elegant minimalism.
Yep.
Or minimalist elegance, however you want to put it.
Elegant minimalist.
I will leave that with you.
Elementalist. There we go. No. Sidney Poitier, actor in The Heat of the Night and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which was a fascinating film. I mean, with
way ahead of its
Spencer
time.
Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. And wow, just amazing. First black man to win an Academy Award in 1963 for his portrayal in Lilies of the Field. He will be 94 years old.
He's still with us.
Yep.
God bless him.
Yep. February 21st, Alan Rickman, actor, Die Hard, Harry Potter, Galaxy Quest, and more. Mm-hmm. He actually frequently passed up film offers to return to the theater. He did Richard III. Yeah. He got 7 curtain calls.
7 curtain calls.
I was a real actor. What did he say? It's Alexander Dane.
Yeah. Look at me. Look at me.
Look at me. And he auditioned for Rimmer on Red Dwarf.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine?
He would have been Rimmer. I would have given money to see Rickman play Rimmer.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been hilarious.
Yes. An interesting thing was that Alexander Dane in Galaxy Quest was supposed to be Sir Alexander Dane, and Alan Rickman asked them to remove that because it was out of character. It was not in keeping with his character, because his character had become a failure, shall we say. Or so he thought.
Well,
so
I would dispute that.
He didn't think that he would have been
that they didn't earn it?
Yeah.
I would have argued that, because I would have said that everything leading up to, before he did Galaxy Quest as a character would have earned him that knighthood, especially if he did some amazing Shakespearean things. Take a look at, oh my God, I can't think of his name. It just went out of my head. Best Friends with Patrick Stewart.
Oh, Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen, look at him.
Yep.
I mean, he got knighted long before he did X-Men.
He's a Knigget.
So I would say, it's very possible that Alexander Dane could have been knighted prior to doing Galaxy Quest,
possible.
which would have made it funny, but oh well.
Oh well. Then we have Elliot Page, actor, Umbrella Academy, X-Men, born in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Man, it's cold up there.
That's freezing cold.
Came out as transgender on December 1st, 2020. Congratulations. Anthony Daniels, actor, C-3PO. Has done a few other things, but has literally made a career of Star Wars.
Yeah, C-3PO is the big thing. I mean, either... in the later Star Wars films, not so much in suit. Well, let me take that back. I don't know.
Yeah, anyway.
It's hard to say, but I know that he's done a lot of voicing for 3PO in addition to just actually being in the costume.
Yeah, he was actually in all 9 films.
Yes, he was.
So, and was not originally a sci-fi fan, but was convinced to meet with George Lucas.
I remember reading about that.
And Mel Blanc originally suggested him for the role.
I thought I read somewhere that he had some experience in mime.
I don't know.
I'm not sure about that.
And then we have a friend of ours, Tom Lynn, and Lisa Pratt. Happy birthday. And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool. You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad? Not me, that's for sure. How much cool cred do you have? Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com? It's just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup. That's why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go over there and listen to Technorama Podcast and our friends Chuck and Craig.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counsellors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
We have to give a shout out to the Joshua Tree Feeding Program, and we do this on every podcast because it's near and dear to our heart, and we encourage you to go support them. They are a 501c3 nonprofit food pantry for the HIV/AIDS community in Maricopa and Pinal counties. They offer a place where the clients can select from a wide assortment of nutritional foods to take home, and they set it up just like a store so that the clients can come in and pick and choose what they want, and it empowers them so no food is wasted. Please consider supporting Joshua Tree through a single or a monthly recurring gift. Go to jtfp.org.
And And it's time for our feedback, and each of these articles that generated this feedback will be in the show notes for this episode number 313 on our website, tggeeks.com. Starting with regarding Hamish Downey's 5 questions with Russell Emanuel. Russell Emanuel himself had a comment. He says, "Thank you to Hamish Downey of TG Geeks for interviewing me about my latest film, Staycation, and its Indiegogo campaign. Much appreciated." And then everything from here on out is regarding TG Geeks episode number 308.
Oh, my God.
Starting with, I got a comment from Sylvain Drouard. He's a French filmmaker we met some years back. It was his birthday, and we wish him a happy birthday, obviously. And he says, "Thanks a lot, my friends. Hope to see you again somewhere in the world." Then I got a comment from Daz Anderson, one of my best friends over in England. And we had talked a little bit about The Mandalorian in that show. And he says, "Anyone heard of the Star Wars radio drama that was broadcast in the 1980s? Well, yeah, I've got it. I've listened to it more times than I can count. It seems Star Wars had spin-offs as long as our arm, with some that you want to remember and others we wish to forget, like, what do you want to buy Chewie for Christmas?"
Oh, dear.
Then I got a comment from Corey Lynn Nelson. She says, "I love the episodes where you two chat. Great conversation."
Thanks, Corey.
Then I got a comment from Yan Is. He says, "It is a great explanation of the Star Wars universe. I hope they create a horror-based series set in the universe." And, you know, there's talk about Disney wanting to add another tier to their Disney Plus streaming service that could be for adults, so you never know. They might go in that direction. Then I got a comment from Hamish Downey. He said, "I love these. Maybe once you go back to interviews, you could do an after show with the two of you chatting." Am I sensing a theme?
Maybe.
Okay, now this one, I debated back and forth if I wanted to run this one. Got this from Arkle. He says, "Ben misrepresented Mark Hamill's comments about The Last Jedi. Despite how the fandom menace spun that particular interview, while Hamill did say that in an interview that he initially didn't care for it, he did come around to appreciate what Rian Johnson was doing. And I'm not kidding about the spin. The two comments of Hamill's are from the same interview. He's wearing the same shirt even. But the first part gets clipped out, and people suffering from toxic nostalgia use it to justify their hate for a movie that dares to suggest that someone might be a somewhat different person after 30 years and multiple traumas. As for The Mandalorian, I will not watch it, especially not if they continue to keep transphobic anti-vaxxer Gina Carano on the payroll."
Well, that's taken care of.
Okay, I got two things to say. Arkle, you have a different opinion from mine, and that's okay, as far as The Last Jedi goes. As for The Mandalorian, you needn't worry, Gina's gone. And besides, from what I've understood, she got her payment up front, so even if you subscribe to Disney Plus and watch Mandalorian, it wasn't adding any more money to her pocket, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. And that's our feedback.
And if you want to leave a comment or a feedback on anything, whether it's on an episode or an article that we run on tggeeks.com, you can do that directly on the website. You can do it on our YouTube episodes, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You can also call and leave us a voicemail. You can call 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. And as always, please play nice. We are huge supporters of independent creators, whether filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or others. Please consider supporting those independent creators right now because, you know, there's not a lot of people out doing a lot of things to get their name out there. But you can check their web pages, their Facebook pages, their Etsy pages, Twitter, Instagram, all of those other things, and maybe even any place else that you look them up. Talk to them. Talk to other people about them, buy their stuff. Please consider supporting independent creators. If you are trans or are questioning your gender identity, and if you are in crisis or are feeling isolated and need someone to talk to, or you know of someone in a similar situation, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. or you can go to translifeline.org to learn about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help. You are not alone.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
Wow. Fade that baby out.
That's all we get. We're running out of time.
Yeah, I just want to quickly say we finished watching The Stand.
Oh, my gosh.
I liked it.
Yeah. It was
I
good.
liked it. I liked it a lot better than the miniseries from way back when. And I loved the final message that was presented at the end of the episode. I would suggest everybody watch it. It was pretty good.
Exactly.
And it's time for our weekly review. These are the articles that we ran on our website at tggeeks.com, and we will have the links for each of these articles in the show notes for tggeeks.com, episode number 313. Starting with Sunday, February 7th, Nerdy Chupacabras, number 34. On Monday the 8th, TG Geeks episode number 312. On Tuesday the 9th, Cinedigm releases Hitchcockian erotic thriller X on digital and DVD February 9th. On Wednesday the 10th, Andrea's Angle, Land, shows an introspective look at grief. On Thursday the 11th, Andrea's Angle, The Map of Tiny Perfect Things is perfectly, wonderfully imaginative. On Friday the 12th, Hamish Downey's News Sushi number 111, morsels of news from Japan and beyond. And lastly, on Saturday the 13th, the Major Arcana releases debut album At the Devil's Ball. Have a couple of shout-outs that we need to make. First, to the Arkle Times Post-Dispatch News for republishing some of our content from time to time. It's put up by the human Arkle, Brian Weber. You can find the Post-Dispatch News by finding him on Twitter. Do that by searching for Arkle, at ARKLE. And while you're doing that, look for Arkle Studios on YouTube. Brian has a number of his projects there. His Shameless Cash Grab series, his Rants vs. Zombies series, which has just ended, but you can still listen to past episodes there, as well as his game videos of Trick and Treat and Star Trek Online. We must also give some shout-outs to a couple of Facebook groups for allowing us to post our episodes and relevant articles on their pages. First, to Gay Geeks After Hours. When I asked their moderators if we could share content there, they said, please share away. Their URL is facebook.com/group/Gay Geeks After Hours. And then to The Gay Geek for the same. And their URL is facebook.com/group/The Gay Geek. And as always, we must give special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Other places we are found are Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, as well as where other fine podcasts can be found. Also, check us out on Sci-Fi Radio, formerly
not Krypton Radio.
And on 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays. And listen to their other content. They are a 24-hour geeky sci-fi internet radio station. Please rate us and review us on iTunes, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page as well as our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I am Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and those around you. Stay home, stay safe, stay sane. Peace.
Cheers.